Hey everyone, Evan Kirstel here. We got a Boston edition here with Jack Gold of J Gold Associates. Jack, how are you?
I'm great, Evan. Great to be here.
So you are a legendary commentator and analyst on the tech space. I won't ask you how many years you've been doing this, but it's been a while. Here in the Boston area, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. And it stopped raining for a day, so all's good here.
We have
It's
some
been raining.
sunshine.
Seems like it's been raining for 2 weeks straight.
It has actually here in Boston. Maybe introduce your body of work and your business.
Sure.
I know every analyst is very unique and different, has a unique background in bio and perspective. How would you characterize what you do exactly?
Yeah. So I've been a tech analyst now for going on 30 plus years. Scary to think about. And I've been an independent analyst to my own firm for wow since 2005. So I guess it's 18 years now.
Mm,
And look at a variety of different technology areas. My background is way back when I was an engineer once upon a time, and I was in marketing, worked for some big companies and some small companies.
mm,
And when I moved over to being an analyst, I started looking at a number of different technologies, mostly around enterprise and end user computing and security aspects of that as well. Worked for when I finally became an analyst, I worked for Metagroup for a number of years until they got acquired by Gartner, and then went on my own. But what I've been really thinking about and concentrating on for the last 20 plus years is everything mobile, everything wireless,
mm,
everything technology oriented around that capability. But also look at a lot of new and emerging technologies like, well, security is not new and emerging, but there are certainly aspects of security that are new and emerging. The cloud capabilities, edge computing, IoT, AR, VR. Most of what I do is focused on enterprise use rather than the consumer side of things. But doing the typical writing notes, doing presentations, talking to customers. We do a lot of work in modeling and ROI and TCO as well. So that's also
mm.
something that comes in handy. So as an independent analyst, one of the advantages I have is I get to follow whatever I think is neat and cool, and I'm happy to follow as opposed to someone telling me what I need to concentrate on. So fairly broad, I guess, would be what I would say.
Wonderful. Well, what stories really have grabbed your attention? What is neat and cool at the moment in the mind of Jack Gold?
So there are a few things, and a lot of it is driven by what happened this week or last week or the week before, of course.
Right.
Um, One of the things that struck me that was kind of cool this week is that Intel announced that they were making quantum computing chips available to a number of research labs at universities.
Mm,
And what's cool about that is that quantum. I mean, we've been talking about quantum now for several years, and it is probably going to be several more years before we have real heavy duty working quantum machines. But quantum has the ability to solve problems that we can't solve any other way.
hmm.
That it would take, 500,000 years for a typical traditional computer to solve, and quantum can solve in a day.
Even a
Um,
even a supercomputer, what we call a high performance computer. So it's
Indeed,
a completely different paradigm.
indeed. And it has some great benefit in things like modeling of weather forecasts. They're going to use it to model atomic weapons as well. But okay,
Mm,
there's bad and good along with everything. But it'll also be really good at, unfortunately, cracking encryption,
mm.
which is something we all rely on. And so that's kind of one of the negative aspects. But there are a lot of technologies, a lot of modeling that you can do on quantum that you couldn't do any other way. Now, what uh, there are folks that have been doing quantum for quite a while now. IBM's had a quantum computer for capability for several
Yes, a
years.
strange looking device I see at CES every year that I really have no idea how it works, but it still seems impressive
It's really cool.
nonetheless.
It's really cool. Like 1 degree Kelvin. It's like, but
Right.
near absolute zero. So yeah. But what Intel wants to do is they want to kind of democratize this by trying to build quantum systems based on semiconductor technology that they already know how to do. And that's pretty unique because everyone else is doing some weird chemical stuff to get to the
Mm,
quantum state. So what they're doing is they built a few chips. They're seeding them out in the marketplace at universities and labs, and they're hoping that that's going to let people at least start experimenting with quantum. Now it's only 12 qubits, and think of a qubit kind of as a the equivalent maybe of a transistor. A
mm,
reasonably good quantum computer is going to have millions of them. So
okay.
we're a long way from anything being full scale, but still just having something to experiment with is a very cool thing.
Well, I actually saw a quantum desktop computer by someone somewhere. I don't know if it was PR, and I don't know why I needed it or want it, but I must have. I just have to have it just to say, look, I have a quantum computer on my desk. But moving on, so you cover the silicon and the whole stack from software and applications and solutions. How do you divide your time? I mean, semiconductor is its own world, right? Versus the application providers and beyond.
Indeed. So I spent a good amount of time talking to the chip guys.
Mm,
I have chips in my background way back when, so I know a little bit about the technology. And it's very interesting because understanding where they're going really gives you a
mm,
pretty good understanding where the market's going. At the end of the day, without the chip guys, we go nowhere, right? So whether it's Intel or Qualcomm or ARM or NVIDIA or Samsung or a variety of other these guys, AMD, you can throw out a lot of names, Ampere. Um, Knowing what they're working on today gives us a pretty good idea of where the market's going to be in 2 to 3 years. And I try to look at futures. So
yeah, and
that
these chip development cycles, fabrication cycles are years, right? I mean, it
yeah.
takes 2 years to design a new ASIC or 2 years to build a new fab. I mean, these are long cycles. And is this sort of a renaissance in semiconductor manufacturing here in the U.S.? Are you bullish about the CHIPS Act and nearshoring, reshoring semiconductor manufacturing, or do you think this is not enough to really establish our position as the global leader in silicon manufacturing
Well,
and design?
yeah. I mean, I think it's a good thing. I think it's absolutely critical. Is it going to get us back to 80% of chips built in the U.S. as it was once upon a time? No, at least certainly not in any near terms. But think about it from the perspective of fault tolerance, market fault tolerance, supply chain. What if there's this? I was going to say, what if China attacks Taiwan? But
Mm,
let's be more positive. What if there's a huge earthquake and the island shakes apart?
mm,
I hope
mm,
it doesn't happen, but who knows? Um, all of a sudden, where are we going to get our chips from? So if we're not producing them locally, it's a real problem. And even TSMC, the major chip manufacturing foundry in Taiwan, understands that they have to diversify locations, so they're building big plants in Texas as well. So I think it's a really good thing that we're doing that. I think it also provides our ability to be able to design closer to the source of where the chips are made, and there's some benefit to doing that because you can get a good engineer to engineer talk, give and
mm.
take from design to manufacturing always helps. That's what Intel was very good at for many years. Last few years not so good, but they're trying to recover that. So overall I think it's really good.
Fascinating. Well, it wouldn't be a tech chat if we didn't talk about AI. And of course, NVIDIA is on fire. I think yet another $1 trillion
Yeah,
company on our hands. So you buy, sell, or hold NVIDIA, given their amazing performance and very bright future. It's hard not to be excited about them and the sort of rejuvenation of this space, right?
yeah. I worry a little bit about the hype cycle here, right?
Hmm,
So
hmm,
clearly, Nvidia has done some great things. And by the way, most people look at Nvidia from a chip perspective. I tend to look at them more full platform perspective. They're doing some
hmm.
really interesting stuff in software that people don't really talk about too much. Omniverse, digital twins kinds of stuff and
Mm,
huge databases and the like. But that said, I just worry that people are ahead of things in the marketplace. NVIDIA has done great stuff. They haven't had a lot of competition in the last couple of years. That's starting to come on board now. Intel's doing some interesting stuff. They're certainly not at the same level yet, but they're doing some interesting stuff to try to push on them. AMD just announced a really high-end GPU
mm,
device that's trying to compete with NVIDIA. There are startups that are trying to move in that space. And by the way, AI, NVIDIA, it competes at the very high end of AI. There's a lot of
mm.
stuff going on in AI at the low end. So
So tell us more. What does that mean? You mean on device or otherwise?
on device. So think about think about your latest smartphone. It does really cool enhanced features with video. The Google Pixel device, right? I can take your face out of a picture if I don't want you in it, right? And still have everything in the background. That's all AI based. There's some really interesting stuff from Qualcomm in the who is the premier chip maker for mobile devices. They're doing some very interesting stuff around video, audio, resolution, hearing things that you maybe wouldn't hear otherwise. So it's not just a high end play. But I do want to caution people. There's been a lot of hype the last couple of weeks about AI is going to ultimately kill off the human race or something. Um, it's not anywhere near that capable at this point. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done. That said, it's also very valuable. There's pros and cons to every technology that comes down the pike, and there are bad things that you can do with AI. All the malware guys are using AI now to get better at trying to hack into our systems, but there's also a lot of good that comes from it.
So that's great to see. Now you talk about enterprise adoption, and you attend a lot of conferences. I think almost every week I see you at some place or another. Um, what are enterprises' perspective on adopting some of these leading edge technologies like AI? I assume they're not the early adopters, but what say you?
Yeah, there's no uniform answer to that because it
Mm,
really depends on what industry I'm in. So if I'm in banking, let's say, and I can use AI to prevent fraud, move fraud from 0.5% to 0.3%, I've just made, a couple of $1 billion, right? If you're a manufacturing company, maybe not so much, because what is it that you're going to use AI for to improve your manufacturing process that you can't do with more traditional technologies? And by the way, there are a lot of companies in manufacturing and in other really mature vertical industries that don't change technology very often, because if they do, they have to shut down their production lines for months at a time, and that just doesn't work. So it's a very broad based environment. I'd say overall right now, from an enterprise perspective, AI perspective, and enterprise, it's mostly experimental. uh, People are trying to figure out the good and the bad. What can I do with it? How will it help me? How will it not affect my security? You probably saw a few weeks back there was a big to do about some engineers at Samsung were using public chat GPT to try to
mm.
help them design some new products. And of course, the information they were putting in is now public knowledge. So, it's not the best way to keep corporate secrets in house. So I'd have to say that most people are very interested in it, but I'd have to also say that it's not widespread as of yet.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I'm at speaking of industries or applications, I'm at Customer Contact Week, a big contact center, event, and there it's really a lot of adoption, a lot of leading edge
Yeah.
opportunities in that industry or that sort of vertical. Have you been surprised on the upside or downside on any of the research work you've been doing lately? I mean, it's you cover a lot, you see a lot. Any huge either disappointments or delights that you've kind of seen over the course of this year or the last year?
Yeah, I've seen a couple of things that kind of uh, stick out for me. Right.
Hmm.
One of the things is that we've been talking about. I spent a lot of time looking at security and what people are doing in
Hmm.
security. We've been talking about security for decades. how we can increase
Sure.
security. And every year is supposed to be the year of super security. And we certainly have been making strides. I don't want to imply that we've done nothing, but security still remains in the top three of problem areas that, if you ask an enterprise, what are your three top problem areas or investment areas, security is usually within one or two. Sometimes it's number three in that space. So security is one of these things that is, I guess it's, we're never going to be 100% there, right? It's something that we're going to have to continue to play with. And there's still, it's amazing. If you talk to enterprises, many companies will have 100, 200, 300 different security products in their corporate environment, doing various different chores, when we thought by now there would be one overarching security platform that we could all work with. And so that's becoming a real issue. That doesn't keep me up at night, but I guess it gives me fodder to keep looking at security long term. From the plus side, one of the things that we looked at is sustainability, and it's interesting to see how much companies are really concentrating on sustainability, and for good reason. I mean, if they do it right and they lower their power demand, it also increases their bottom line, right? They're paying less for electricity or not having to throw things away or whatever the sustainability is. But that's becoming a very interesting area. We looked at one model, just to throw out a number here. We looked at a model not long ago about the wireless, the cellular networks in the U.S. And there's a prediction that if you do better at putting better equipment in place and getting better software management, we could save 40%, up to 40% of the power that's going on in the cellular network in the U.S. Turns out that when we looked at some of the numbers, you could probably power a city of 400 or 500,000 people with that power savings if you could actually pull it off. So it's an amazing amount of power that we just don't realize that's out there. Same with data centers and cloud centers. I saw a statistic the other day that, and this is fairly common, I've seen it before from other places, that data centers use up 2 to 3% of the total power generated in the world. That's a lot of electricity.
That's amazing. Yeah, there are companies in Scandinavia that are really leading the way.
Yep.
Companies like like Ericsson and Nokia are building sustainability into their products.
Right.
Even there are times when you can kind of switch off base stations. They're not being used, or they're not active,
Indeed.
or they're sort of low power mode, or you're using recycled heat from data centers to heat towns and villages. So
Right.
I would agree. There's some really optimistic opportunities there as well.
And by the way, just to follow up on an earlier thought, we were talking about AI. Most of those guys are using AI now in their management consoles to try and figure out how to best manage their networks for the most sustainability and best performance.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, tell me about what you do in your role. How has the role of an analyst changed or evolved over the last 2, 3 decades from when you could have started out to today? What are the big differences? And you don't see many young kids getting into the analyst business. So I don't know. Is that a problem, do you think, for the industry? Or you have to wait a couple of decades, then you can become an analyst when you've sort of graduated from whatever path you were on?
Yeah, I think it is. Well, one, it's different, right? When I started out,
Yeah.
it was a very, very different model. The tech analyst community consisted of, about 3 or 4 companies.
Yeah.
Today, we've got hundreds
Right.
of small niche, and I don't mean that negatively, but concentrated in different
Yeah.
areas. Analyst communities,
Individual practitioners. Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
right, or 2 or 3 or 5 person organizations. When I started, it was Gartner had been around. The 100-pound gorilla, Yankee, Frost and Sullivan was around, of course. Metagroup, where I was, and there were a few others, but mostly there were, maybe there were a dozen real analyst firms. And as I said, now they're probably hundreds. The difference I think now is that with so many different analysts, the companies, the vendors, and even the end user companies are having a real challenge trying to figure out who to talk to,
Mm,
and how often I should talk to them and what I should talk to them about. So, what used to be much more honestly analyst focused, what's going on in the marketplace, why is it important, what should a company do about it, has shifted over the last few years, in my opinion, to more of this is cool, this is something I want to tell you about, and the companies really want you to be kind of a their mouthpiece,
mm.
their sounding board, as opposed to do deep dive analysis of what should be coming next. So I think that's how it's changed dramatically. From your comment about not a lot of young people getting into the analyst field, honestly, I think it's just plain too crowded.
Yeah.
There are so many bloggers out there. There are so many voices on Twitter and on
I'm
LinkedIn.
one of
And
those. So I'm not a traditional analyst, but I have an industry perspective,
right,
and I sort of do some of the things that analysts do. But yes, there are lots of people doing
right,
different things for sure.
right. And so, whose opinion do you listen to? Whose opinion do you trust? Whose
Mm,
opinion matters long term? Who has a track record? A lot of that has to do with one being in the industry for a long time, but also what are the measurement criteria? It's really hard to measure anything. When you go to people used to say no one gets fired for buying IBM, no
mm.
one gets fired for talking to Gartner, right? So I think that's how it's changed. It's really become a volume business as opposed to a few big firms. It's now kind of diluted, I guess is the way I would put it.
Yeah, yeah, it's an interesting perspective, but it also opens up new doors, I imagine, for you. So beyond research and advisory work, do you get involved in consulting or helping enterprises? Or you must have various special projects from time to time that could be quite interesting, fun.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. That's absolutely true. Um, it does make it much more diverse. There are
Hmm.
a lot more projects out there. There's a lot more project level work as opposed to just straight research.
Hmm.
And frankly, I find that very attractive. The part that I don't like is all the travel anymore because it's just a hassle. But beyond that, by the way, one of the good things about COVID is that we've finally got a lot of these tools that we're talking on here today. The collaboration, so we don't have to get on airplanes or even get in cars or
Yeah,
trains.
face to face, we're actually face to face now, despite not being here together. So
Right.
yes, it's changed the expectations totally. Now, what are you looking forward to over the next few weeks or months? Do you have? I'm sure you have events that you're already penciled in, plan to go
Yeah.
to. Where can we find you?
Well, over the next couple of weeks, my because July 4th is coming up very quick. My family's
Yeah,
decided that I'm taking some time off, so
nice. I
it's
love
going to
it.
start there. But
And
there are a number of
this is the
events.
home of the revolution, Massachusetts. We take it very seriously. So yes, we like our July 4th. But yes,
That's right.
what's next?
So one of the good things is now that it's July, August, things slow down. But come September, there's going to be, of course, a whole bunch of stuff happening. I've gotten some invitations to some 5G events. There is AWS is having another event coming up in September. I can't remember the exact dates. Intel's got a couple of things. Some of the chip companies do as well. And I have to look at my calendar because I can't even keep track of them anymore. There's so many.
Well, I enjoy following you on Twitter. You're pretty active, and follow Jack, everyone. And yeah, thanks for joining, sharing some perspective, and thanks everyone for watching.
Thank you.
Reach out to us with any follow up questions or feedback. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you.
Bye bye.